You were the trad wife before trad wives became a thing online.
So I was very much like isolated at home. I kept having babies. I was pregnant and or nursing for 13 years.
Wow.
And then when my oldest was around 4, we started like loosely homeschooling. That was one of the things that I argued with my husband a lot about. I'm a very very free, creative, that kind of educational model. And my husband is much more academically minded. So I was expected to do it his way. And it was incredibly difficult and never went well. But I persisted because that's the Christian thing to do. I would also say that a lot of these things the system teaches you to moralize everything. Everything that you do is life or death, all the decisions that you make. So like healthcare are you gonna vaccinate your kids, which we were anti-vax and we're not anymore. That's a life or death decision because your children could be permanently harmed from vaccines. So you better make the right decision. And so everything is high stakes in that way. And as someone who's like trying to be a good person, trying to follow God, trying to be a good Christian, that was one of the reasons that I was so bought in, because I want to be a good wife. I want to be a good support person for my husband. I want to serve God well by being a good wife, and that is how I serve God. So that affects everything. You want to do these things, and when the system tells you this is how you can be a good person, this is how you can be a good wife, you're like, okay, I will do it. And it simplifies it.
The internet is exploding with reports that are leaving people stunned, confused, and deeply divided. Stories are beginning to surface about so-called trad wives, walking away from high-control Christian nationalist communities, and if these reports are even partially true, what's happening behind closed doors is far more intense than anyone expected. Fans are shocked as more voices begin to speak out, each one adding another layer to a situation that already feels heavy with emotion and conflict. What was once presented as a picture-perfect lifestyle, quiet homes, traditional roles, and strong values is now being questioned in ways that no one saw coming. People are starting to ask, was everything really as peaceful as it seemed? According to emerging discussions online, some women are reportedly choosing to leave these tightly structured environments. And the reactions have been anything but calm. Emotions ran high as families, friends, and entire communities found themselves caught in the middle of difficult conversations. You can't just walk away.
But it must be so stressful to every day think these decisions I'm making are life or death and such high stakes, and God is judging me, and am I being pure enough? And
you're literally so in your head the whole time, making sure that you're right, and there's so many rules to do, and the standard is so high, you're constantly working, that you're literally too busy to have thoughts outside of just keeping up with your life, with your obedience. You're literally performing obedience so much every day, there isn't room for you to start to be like, oh, and reflect, and, did that feel right? Did that have a good outcome? Was that even effective,
Now you're deconstructing from that life.
Absolutely, yeah. Now my husband jokes that he's the trad wife.
My family was a small family, actually. We had 5 kids.
That's considered small, 5 kids.
That's very small. I had friends and connections throughout, all of conservative evangelicalism, not any one group. And oh my goodness, everybody had 8 to 12 kids at least. There's the occasional family that they could only have 2 kids. And so they did, but almost everybody was 8 to 12 kids or more. More was not uncommon either. So my options with the Reformed groups were maybe become a midwife, but get married to a guy who's 8 years older than you, have a bunch of children, live at home forever and ever. And I love education. I love learning. I love science especially. And I really like grabbed onto that in our homeschool group. That was my thing. That was what I enjoyed. Science, chemistry especially. And my best friend's family started going, you can go to college. You can learn more.
Because you didn't think you would have that option, going to college and
No,
going on. Really?
College wasn't an option, no.
You were just to get married.
So silly.
Get married and then just become a trad wife.
Exactly, yeah.
And have as many kids as possible.
Yeah, and that was not my favorite option. But what the more charismatic groups were kind of pulling me in for was more of a Christian nationalist leader type. Because women could actually be leadership in Christian nationalism if you were the right strain. And that was better. That was a better option. So I went to the college that essentially that family picked out for me. I would not have chosen that for myself, I don't think. But I compromised with my parents and didn't burn bridges, and I went for music instead of science or something like that. So in a lot of ways, like even if it's not the most, even if my family was not the ones who were driving every step of my path, like everything I did was for other people and for other people's expectations. I didn't really have autonomy. I didn't have choices. I made the best choices that I could without completely burning my life down around me.
Could you have gone to make your own money and that kind of thing and have your own?
That was a constant fight. I didn't.
Did they believe that girls and women shouldn't work outside the home, basically?
Yeah. It was not super even heard of. Like, you can teach music, you can become a midwife. Those are kind of your options if you're a woman. You can't go out and do much else.
I'm curious how you were treated differently from like how your brothers were treated versus you.
So I actually had probably the best experience as this goes because I only had a younger brother. I didn't have a ton of younger siblings. But even that, with just one brother who was 2.5 years younger than me, the work that I was responsible to do versus him, like I was cooking all of the meals, like Danny said earlier, I was cooking all of the meals every weekend. My brother wasn't responsible to do any of that. I was working a full-time job all through nannying other people's kids, all through middle school and high school, and I was still being punished for not keeping the house clean enough. Even though I wasn't there, I was literally living at a different house 4 days a week. Boys were supposed to be educated, but girls were supposed to learn to be keepers at home. And so it was not just help your mom, it was actually like perform being a wife now, perform being a housewife now, learn all the skills on the level that you'll need when you are a mother and need to sew your own whole family's wardrobe, make food from scratch. So they were literally going out of their way to find more things for us to do, to find more projects and skills for us to learn. So we were busy and tired. Just in our country as it is right now, girls' access to leisure time, even outside of these circles, is greatly reduced from boys. But in these circles, I've heard you talk about how like the boys would be outside playing for hours and hours when you guys were still inside doing chores.
Yeah, my older sisters were waking up with babies at night.
How
I had the 4 a.m. shift.
I was changing diapers when I was 7, 8 years old of younger siblings, feeding them, taking care of them, like.
And not just like once in a while for fun.
No, like as a general rule. Yeah.
Like you
being
got in trouble
trained.
if you didn't do it.
Yeah, like
your
who was going to
job.
watch the baby if you don't take care of the baby?
What was the hierarchy in your households?
Well, God, Jesus, pastor, elders,
Okay.
dad, wife, kids.
Older brothers.
Oh yeah, older brothers.
Other brothers
It's
go
true.
before the
Yeah, there was
girls.
sibling hierarchy as well. So like the older siblings could discipline,
Yeah.
aka spank the younger kids.
The siblings could punish each other.
Like corporal
Yeah,
punishment.
we were told to. I mean, as the oldest kid, I was told to. Like that's how I was told to handle things.
I was the black sheep. I wasn't
You
allowed.
have 10, 12, 14 children. You can't possibly keep track of all of them. And so you have to enlist your older children to look out for their younger siblings. It's very isolating.
One voice is said to have argued, "Watch me." Another reportedly replied, "End just like that." What may have started as a personal decision quickly turned into something much bigger. Insiders are hinting at emotional confrontations, silent tensions, and moments where everything changed in an instant. The family was left divided, with some supporting the decision to leave, while others saw it as a betrayal of everything they believed in. But here's where it gets even more intense. These reports suggest that the departures didn't happen quietly. There are claims of heated arguments, last-minute confrontations, and unexpected exits that left entire households in shock. Some say it's about freedom. Others insist it's about pressure that outsiders never truly understood. And, while nothing has been officially confirmed in full detail, the sheer volume of stories coming out is enough to raise serious questions. What really pushed these women to leave? What was happening behind the scenes that no one talked about? And why is this story suddenly gaining so much attention right now? Because if these reports continue to unfold the way they are, this might just be the beginning of a much bigger conversation. The reports didn't appear all at once. They started quietly, almost like whispers moving through small online spaces where people began sharing their stories in fragments. At first, many dismissed them as isolated experiences. But as more voices joined in, a pattern began to form, one that was difficult to ignore. According to these emerging accounts, life inside these high-control environments was not always as calm and structured as it appeared from the outside. While the public image focused on simplicity, tradition, and devotion, insiders are now suggesting that the reality may have been far more complicated. One woman, whose identity remains undisclosed, reportedly described her experience in a way that caught everyone's attention. "Everything looked perfect from the outside," she said, "but inside it felt like I was losing myself piece by piece." Fans are shocked. As these kinds of statements continue to surface, what makes the situation even more intense is the suggestion that many of these women didn't initially see anything wrong. Some reports claim that they entered these communities willingly, drawn by the promise of stability, purpose, and a clear sense of direction. For a while, everything seemed to align with their expectations. But over time, subtle shifts began to appear. It wasn't one big moment, another voice reportedly shared. It was small things adding up until I couldn't ignore them anymore. These small things, as they're being described, reportedly included strict expectations about daily routines, limited freedom in decision-making, and an unspoken pressure to conform without question. While some individuals embraced these structures, others began to feel confined by them. Emotions ran high as these realizations started to take shape. Within families, tensions reportedly began quietly. A question here. A hesitation there, nothing dramatic at first, but enough to create discomfort. Loved ones noticed changes in tone, in behavior, in the way conversations unfolded. "Why are you asking so many questions lately?" One partner is said to have asked. "Because I need to understand," came the quiet response. That simple exchange, according to some reports, marked the beginning of deeper conflicts as more women began expressing doubts. The reactions around them varied. Some were met with concern, others with resistance. In certain cases, discussions reportedly turned into arguments. With both sides struggling to be heard, "This is the life we chose," one voice insisted. "But what if it's not the life I want anymore?" Another responded. The family was left divided. In some households, support systems began to fracture. Close friends found themselves caught between loyalty and empathy. Some chose to stand by those questioning their roles, while others felt those questions threatened the foundation of everything they believed in. Outside these communities, the online world was becoming increasingly aware of what was happening. Posts, videos, and anonymous testimonies started gaining attention, each one adding more detail to the unfolding narrative. People who had never heard of these lifestyles before were suddenly trying to understand them. "Is this real?" One commenter asked. "How did no one talk about this before?" Another wondered. The attention brought both support and criticism. Some viewers expressed sympathy, believing these women were finally finding their voice. Others pushed back, arguing that outsiders were misinterpreting a lifestyle they didn't fully understand. This clash of perspectives only added to the intensity of the situation. Meanwhile, inside these environments, reports suggest that conversations were becoming harder to avoid. Leaders, partners, and family members reportedly began addressing the growing concerns, sometimes in private, sometimes in group settings. The tone of these discussions varied. Some were calm and measured, while others were described as emotionally charged. "We need to stay strong in our values," one figure is said to have emphasized. "But what about my feelings?" A response allegedly followed. That question, simple yet powerful, seemed to echo through many of these accounts. For those considering leaving, the decision was rarely easy. Reports indicate that it often came after long periods of internal conflict. Doubt, fear, and uncertainty played a major role, making every step forward feel heavier. "I didn't know what would happen next," one woman reportedly said, "but I knew I couldn't stay the same." The moment of leaving, as described in several accounts, was anything but simple. Some departures were quiet, happening without confrontation. Others were marked by emotional exchanges, last-minute attempts to change minds, and conversations filled with both anger and heartbreak. "You're making a mistake," one voice is said to have warned. "Maybe," came the reply, "but it's my mistake to make." Those moments left lasting impacts. Families were forced to adjust to sudden changes. Relationships that once felt unbreakable were tested in ways no one expected. For some, distance grew. For others, understanding slowly began to develop over time. But even after leaving, the journey didn't end. Reports suggest that many of these women faced new challenges outside the communities they had known for so long. Adjusting to a different lifestyle, rebuilding independence, and navigating unfamiliar environments all became part of the process. It felt like starting over, one account described. Everything was new, and that was both exciting and terrifying. At the same time, support networks began to form. People who had gone through similar experiences connected with each other, sharing advice, encouragement, and understanding. These connections, according to some reports, became a crucial part of moving forward. Still, not everyone viewed these changes in a positive light. Critics continued to question the narratives being shared, suggesting that the stories might be exaggerated or incomplete. Supporters, however, argued that even if the details varied, the underlying themes deserved attention, and so the discussion continued to grow. Media outlets picked up on the story, adding their own interpretations and analyses. Experts weighed in, offering perspectives on social dynamics, personal choice, and the complexities of tightly structured communities. Each new voice added another layer to an already complex situation. Through it all, one thing remained clear. This wasn't just about individual decisions. It was about identity, belief, and the struggle to find balance between personal freedom and collective values. As more reports continue to emerge, the picture becomes both clearer and more complicated at the same time. For some, these stories represent courage and change. For others, they raise concerns about misunderstanding and misrepresentation. But regardless of perspective, the emotional weight of the situation cannot be ignored, because behind every report, every discussion, every debate, there are real people facing choices that carry lasting consequences. And as the conversation keeps evolving, the sense that something significant is unfolding becomes harder to deny.